Good evening, everyone. Tonight is March 10th, and this is a special meeting of the Board of Education. Would you please stand and honor America and join me in reciting the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a request that the full board address legal counsel's presence as the first item for deliberation tonight. So I make a motion that we have legal counsel present when we discuss board ethics and violations, board operation, and treatment of others. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, comments?
I'm not sure why we have to do this, but I kind of wanted to add something to the agenda. We were supposed to do it 6 days prior, or is this? And we knew about this meeting since March 2nd. I was just wondering more why you waited till we do add it to the agenda.
Because I thought about the importance of having legal counsel present. And since we did, then what we're going to discuss could have an impact on every board member, and I thought it was important that they did, that we have it. And as president, I can set certain items on the agenda.
Okay, I just, that's your policy, sorry, just wondering.
Julie?
So my assumption is that we don't actually have legal counsel here, correct? So if we do vote on this and it approves, essentially this evening meeting is a waste of time, correct? Because we will not proceed.
We would make a motion to adjourn, and then I would request Dr. Douglas contact our legal advisors and offer us dates for when they are available.
I can add something. Just so that I can help with Julie's question. If no member of the board can request legal counsel. So when this came in, it's a request no different than any other board member. So in order for me or the district to seek bringing legal counsel to the board has to decide whether or not that's part of the policy. So I can't do anything. I can do whatever I need to do with legal counsel in the course of my business and stuff, but this isn't my business. So
Okay. Thanks for asking that question, because I'm like kind of confused. So if you decided to bring in legal counsel, then we have no meeting tonight?
Correct.
But we should have a meeting. Okay.
So back in January, when we were discussing the retreat, there was a board resolution when we were talking about wanting to have a discussion about the board dynamics and issues that had taken place. And there were 3 of us members who said that we wanted to have James Gregory come and meet with us and have a retreat. And the board voted it down. The board said no. So essentially what this is doing is going back on what the board already voted no against and re-bringing it up. It's also the 6 days past. My mom said that was a good point with the agenda, not having 6 days prior to, but also I don't believe that we're supposed to email over specific requests Um, I know that we are allowed to share information as it pertains or asks for certain things to be put on the agenda. I know that I have requested items to be on the agenda, 6 days prior to, and all of this stuff is already public information for the most part. And I think that it's very important that this meeting take place tonight, that we have a discussion about it, because I think that if we don't, it's just showing that it's not, the discussion that's happening tonight is because of how a couple of members have behaved, not necessarily the whole board. But if we don't have this meeting, I think that that does then start to rope in the entire board into this, and the behavior of what we're not following or what we're not doing, and just continuously trying to silence. Like this conversation needs to happen today. It's not an easy one to have, but we cannot continue to prolong this. Like I said, going back and trying to undo something that was already once voted on just recently. No, I don't see how that makes any sense whatsoever. And I also think that there's a little bit of bias in the request when the email said to protect board members. I think that that's almost requesting to have to having the school attorney protect an individual board member. That's kind of what that seems like. I have never submitted a request to have an attorney look over and review all of the things that happened to me in the course of this time. So I don't feel like that's appropriate.
I think the meeting that you were referring to when we voted, majority of the board voted not to hold the retreat was because James had come at one time and I don't think things were resolved. I think there was a conflict of date as to whether or not he could come. The 30th was the only date out of many that were offered. That was a date that most of the board could come. So there were a lot of reasons why, and I personally voted, I can't speak for others, but there were multiple reasons why I voted not to have that meeting. I didn't feel that it was going to be productive. Prior to the email about having legal counsel, I have thought many times that I was concerned about behaviors at board meetings. And so I was very happy to see that, and I feel it's necessary, and I don't feel comfortable pursuing what's on the agenda without legal counsel here. We are not saying that this meeting will not happen. It will happen, but it will happen with legal counsel present.
Yeah.
Sorry, recording this stuff. So I have a few different things that I would like to say. And first, I would like to just reiterate what Mary Ann said. I think the difference, Katrina, when we voted previously, it was with respect to a retreat, and we wanted a facilitator. I think the difference is you have called for a public board meeting. And based upon the materials you provided ahead of time, I can only assume that you will make allegations in the course of this meeting with respect to harassment or bullying, which raise legal issues and potential liability for the board as well. And you've said this many times in public session before, and I've corrected it or attempted to. You, in the materials, have characterized that the board is violating the open meetings law, right? So there are things that you, I believe, based upon the materials you circulated, intend to say, which implicate legal questions. And for that reason, I think it makes sense to have legal counsel present. I don't think it's protecting any individual board member. It's protecting the board. James is a lawyer for the board. no one individual board member is his client. It's the board that's his client. That's where the attorney-client relationship exists. With respect to this meeting, I would argue under 2320 special meetings, it says business related to the call of the meeting shall be discussed or transacted by the board. I think raising the question of whether the lawyer should be present with respect to a meeting that's titled legal violations of board ethics or something to that effect. I mean, to me, I would argue that's within the scope of what has been called and is not adding a separate item. But more fundamentally, and I wholeheartedly agree that we have to have this conversation. I wanted to have this conversation in the retreat. We struggled to find a date that worked, and we struggled to find a facilitator. I still think we should have that conversation in a retreat. I don't think a special board meeting is the appropriate forum for this conversation. And I base that upon the fact that Board Policy 2300 defines a special meeting as an official legal action meeting, usually called for an emergency or urgent purpose. By definition, your stated agenda had no legal action associated with it. So I mean, we can discuss, but there's no action to be taken. That, under our policy, is actually what's described as a work session, a public meeting to plan, brainstorm, and discuss issues without taking formal action. So I frankly have a problem with, now I understand any single board member can call a special meeting, that's what our policy says, but they're supposed to call it for certain purposes. Emergency need to transact official business of the district. And I don't think that was stated in the call of the meeting, and quite frankly, I considered objecting to having it, but then I thought it more appropriate to be able to say these things in public. And I think what we need to do is agree upon the right forum to do this, where we can be open, have a facilitator, and work through the issues. But I do believe, to the extent we're in a public meeting, which is on record, and you intend to make allegations of potential legal violations against any single member of the board, which could then fall back to liability for the board as a whole, having legal counsel is important.
So to respond to that, yes, I have brought it up several times, the bullying that has happened. In fact, it began the very first time that an executive session was called. And at that point, it wasn't just a single person or a couple of people, it was the board as a whole who was doing this. And so I've been at this point, this is just the same continuation of, we wanted to have a retreat because we wanted to have a resolve. We could have already had Jules here. In fact, we asked to have that happen. People said, no, we don't want James to be here. You're calling to have a retreat, but retreats don't ever have minutes or video postings of how it is. And the public absolutely has the right to see what the board is doing at all times. The last two retreats, we talked about policy, how policy is created, how policy is supposed to be followed. In fact, there were some things that I thought were not necessarily true, but there's no public record of it. The last retreat had a lot of conversation revolved around me, I'm assuming. I wasn't there. Jamie told me that it was a public meeting for NISBA and that it was recorded, and it wasn't. So to me, all of that, what you just explained, to try to have a retreat, like, I'm not trying to implement the board at all, but we all signed a code of ethics. Bullying is not allowed. I understand that we went through a whole process and people didn't like me asking questions and everything else, but to me, it's starting to become really apparent that the board as a whole is trying to silence an individual member who is asking financial questions and seeking financial things from the district. That's what it's starting to feel like. And it's starting to feel like you're trying to make it so I can't do it. And to me, this is almost a precedent. If we don't have this meeting tonight and this doesn't continue, I feel like I would be filing a formal complaint and then going to the commissioner, because I feel like at this point, it's a board as a whole trying to say that members are not allowed to ask questions. They're allowed to be cut off. And it's not just saying, you know, you're like, okay, time, whatever is happening. It's the way in which somebody is spoken to, being screamed at is not appropriate. Being like all of these things it's not appropriate. I have had migraines. I have lost sleep. I shake. I've had to cancel clients. I cannot mentally handle this anymore.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
It's just, it's
Point
not
of
okay.
order, point of order.
Katrina, I think, quite frankly, if you feel like you're being bullied, what you should do is submit a formal complaint. I would disagree with you that the public has a right to hear the details of what you think you have a point of view that you believe you're being bullied. Whether, and I won't characterize it, that's your point of view. But I don't think the public has a right to hear that. Public has a right to hear district business. That's not district business. If you have what do we tell staff members, students, family to do if they have a complaint? To submit a formal complaint and let the processes work. But quite frankly, I'm not sure what you thought we would do tonight. There's no action to be taken. There's no, it would just be a session of basically hearing of grievances, which is not district business. And I'm not in any way diminishing how you feel. And I think it's important you pursue the things you can do to try to make yourself be heard, but I don't think this is the right forum. And I fundamentally disagree with what you've said in terms of trying to be silenced, not letting financial questions be asked. I have wholeheartedly followed the code of ethics that we sign as board members. I said this in a prior meeting, but quite frankly, to me, I think where I spoke up was because some of the financial questions seemed at a level of detail that was not appropriate for a board member, right? So in any event, you have rights and you can pursue those rights, but I don't think with a meeting like this with no action to be taken, I'm not sure how you would be able to vindicate those in this meeting.
Oh,
So,
microphone, okay. What I'm going to read is just thoughts that I've had, especially concerned about the board and demeanor and so forth.
I'm gonna ask a question, because the motion is should we have legal counsel? Have we gone afield from that question? It seems like we have.
I think, does anyone else want to be heard that hasn't been heard? Everyone has a right, has an opportunity.
Right. But
Well, just
are you gonna talk about legal counsel? You're gonna-
So I understand that should come first.
Okay.
I waited a moment so that I could hear what everybody else had to say, but I do agree with Dan that I believe the tenet of the meeting and the topics of the meeting, and even some of the things that you shared here tonight, Katrina, directly, I feel warrant the input of a lawyer for educational law. Because if we are going to have this meeting in public, and I disagree with that as well, I feel that those kinds of things should be happening not at a district board meeting, where we're supposed to be doing the business of the board, but I would want the understanding of what the legal terminology is for the items that you have, and if we as a board meet that criteria. If we as a board, are you being bullied as you're claiming as a part of what the legal jargon is for that, right? So I would want to have a lawyer here that could be able to explain that, express that, and really hold us all accountable and to task if that is happening. So that would be my rationale for wanting to have legal representation, because that is the person that's going to be able to tell us definitively if things are happening. That would be my rationale.
All right, call the question. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? The motion is 5-3. Motion to adjourn?
Just making the same.
Well,
If you can hold for a second. I need direction of what you would like me to do. So if that's the thing, because what I heard, the meeting still needs to take place. So do you want to? I understand the board basically saying, go out and get an attorney, get the attorney, get a date from the attorney or a couple of dates, and then everybody's gonna make themselves available. It's gonna be at this time, because it seems like this time, 7 o'clock seems to be better to get people together.
I can't promise I'm gonna make myself available. We wasted 25 minutes of our time, and we could have had this conversation way before. The email went out on the 1st of March. Today is the 10th. 25 minutes of our time has been waiting deliberating over whether or not we need an attorney present. And I find it very hard to believe that the seniority of the members of this board cannot have had that discussion to be made that determination be made ahead of time. So I'm not sure that everyone's going to be available.
I mean, oh yeah, I'm only the superintendent. You guys just said you need an attorney available. I've got to get dates. I will get them. I'm trying to target the next 2 weeks. 7 o'clock, and people are going to have to make themselves available if they want to have this discussion. If that's the direction of the board. Otherwise, I'm going to step away. You tell me the date. And that's it. I don't have a problem either way. But I can tell you, we're looking foolish. And whether you're available or not, the board meeting, once established and set, is a board meeting, no longer a special meeting. That's what I'm trying to do for you. So that's what I need guidance.
So you're saying you're gonna call a different, an additional board meeting, or is it gonna be?
Well, I'd have to call another, I'd have to get the, I don't know when the attorney's available, so.
So I was the person who called this meeting. You said that there was no action that was gonna be taken at all tonight. There was absolutely going to be action to be taken tonight. Whether or not we made a motion to have somebody no longer be at a position of where they are on the board is in a leadership position, or whether or not someone should be removed from the board. These are positions. So now, because I have to go through the complaint process, as you said, first I tried to call a special meeting to talk about it so that we can have a real clear conversation about it. It's very clear that it's not just single members. So I would like to file a complaint about the board. I am filing a complaint with all of the material that I sent on the agenda. My intention is to not go to the commissioner, because I do not believe that this conversation that we're having is a lawyer conversation. What's happening right now, I don't think is allowed by law to silence other board members, and that's what's happening. So let me know those steps. That it's not in the exhibit, but I expect to have an email for my steps, for my complaint process, because I'm gonna start it.
Okay. Lot to unpack here.
Yep.
First of all, the board can't provide an individual board member unless the board says it for action. So I can't do anything Well, that's the board. If an individual in our community wishes to take action, they do so outside of the board. That's just the legal process. That's all I can do, and I can't give legal advice. All I'm trying to do is get you guys to talk with the lawyer, and I do want to clear up one thing. The thing in January, James was available for the 30th, but the discussion was, we had James, we want a facilitator, that James was not going to be necessarily the facilitator, he was going to be there to assist the facilitator. We went out to look at another facility because the facilitators would not or could not be available that night, even after looking for a month and a half. We had another one, but since then he was involved in a lot of superintendent searches and has watched our video and said, I don't think I'm going to be available. So the only thing you have left is either yourself or the discussion or the attorney. I'm being told by the vote that you want to have this discussion. You want the attorney present. It can be open or whatever the board decides, but I want everybody to understand, I'm not making a decision. It's you guys that have to make the decision. So all I'm trying to do is just figure out when to do it. I'm trying not to do it too far away. Hopefully I can get him and he says, hey, I can be there Thursday night, but I don't know if he's going to be able to. Well, I know.
So I'd like to speak on a few of the things that were just said. So what, Julie, with respect to the ability to bring the lawyer here, the board had to vote on that to say we want that. We can't vote outside of a public meeting. That's why it had to be held tonight. And Katrina, the official notice from the district clerk states the special board meeting is for board discussion with no official business of the district scheduled to be acted upon at this meeting. There's no, you know, when we have a business meeting, we have a list of agenda and we have things that we're going to move on and agree and take action on. We didn't have that for this meeting. You don't think removing the president of the board wouldn't be business of the district?
You know, I think that's business of the board, and maybe it's different, so how?
So if it's business of the board, it's an inappropriate meeting because policy 2300 defines a special meeting as the official legal action meeting, and it's to sorry, I just lost my place here. Yeah, no official business scheduled to be taking place, right? Policy states that no official, contrary to 2320, which states special meetings are for responding to, quote, special circumstances which may arise during district operations. The point of a special meeting is, you know, we have some significant equipment failure and we have to come in and approve a repair before the next meeting. I am not trying to silence you. I'm encouraging you to file a complaint. That's why those processes exist. What I am troubled by is that you're forcing a discussion on what you want to talk about through an inappropriate channel and then characterizing it as you're being silenced. This is a board of 9 people. No one of us has any power whatsoever to act other than it's specifically delegated to the president. We vote, and then the vote determines how we act. And sometimes you're on the winning end of the vote, sometimes you're on the losing end of the vote. But being on the losing end of the vote doesn't mean you're being silent for voting. That's an incorrect assumption to make. You have to accept that the board has decided, and it doesn't, I think it's unfair for you to characterize it as though that the board silenced you. You know, that's just the decision of the board. And so, sorry, one last thing. I will continue to object to this being proposed for a special meeting because I don't think that's an appropriate topic. I think if we want to have a discussion around these dynamics, it's something we would do, say, in the course of our board evaluation meeting. That seems to be an appropriate time to talk about how the board interacts and how we treat one another. If it's board business as opposed to district business, or in a board retreat where we have a facilitator and legal counsel. But these special meetings are for conducting the business of the district, and you yourself just said you don't think this is district business.
Oh, Marion, you wanted to say something. Do you want to read your?
Mine is just a general thoughts about how things have gone. I don't know. If it's
I
appropriate.
focus on.
That's just what Dan has done, so I'm gonna do what I was gonna do.
Go ahead, Stu.
Because he just got to say what he wanted to say, so. That's what play. But do you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
If that's fine. As I thought about this meeting and what I've witnessed for the last year and a half since Katrina has been elected, I will say how sad I am. The board is in charge of our district. We have a no bullying policy, yet some feel it is okay. Let me read the definition of a school board member. New York State school board member is a locally elected official who manages the public schools in their community. They are responsible for the education, safety, and well-being of their district students. Responsibilities, set policies, make decisions, advocate for students, oversee operations, manage the district's budget, personnel, and properties, listen to the community, qualifications. I guess we don't really need those. Be a citizen, be at least 18 years old, be a qualified voter in the school district, be able to read and write English. They shall hold. This was on the New York State boards. And then I went to the New York State Board Association. There's another generalization about the school board. Nowhere does it say you should try to control other board members. Tell them how they think. You waste our time, you talk too long, I hear what you say, but you're wrong on that. You are one of nine. You don't have to like everyone you serve with, but you should be kind when you speak. Others are watching. I have lost count of how many community members, former board members, and staff that have come to me about behavior they have witnessed. When I served previously on the Horset School Board, we met twice a month, and most meetings were 4 hours or more. No one ever said, and believe me, I asked a lot of questions. No one ever said, you waste our time. You are responsible. We are responsible for the finances of this district and policy. At the moment, we have a $2.3 million gap. It is very disturbing what is happening on this board. We have to talk about this. We have to treat each other as we're one of nine. And I really feel badly that every time someone says something that certain members have said, well, it's not like this, you see this wrong. It's really not your place as one of nine to say that to another individual. I served previous for 11 years, and I've never been treated the way I see some members treated on this board. It's very sad to me.
All right, I want to say one thing, and I don't want to hurt you in any way, Katrina. You referred to our first executive meeting, and I remember it well. You thought you were being bullied. My impression and what we were hoping to do was to help you to understand what the job of a board member was, how to approach things, because you were new. You had not agreed to meet with Dr. Douglas. You had not agreed to meet with Christine Dale, who was president at the time, who wanted to help you get through all of these things. It's a difficult task, becoming a board member. It truly is. It takes a lot of time. But you weren't willing to listen to us then. And you turned it around and it interpreted it as we were bullying you. Now, you have your opinion, but that was my opinion of what happened that evening. Now, I've been thinking, yes, Sue has, because I served before as well. So that is what I'd like to say. I've given a great deal of thought to what I'm about to say, and I ask for the courtesy of reading this without an interruption. I moved to Horseheads in 1974, purchased a home in 1978. My children attended Horsehead schools from kindergarten through high school. At the time my oldest was ready for school, I was teaching for Corning Painted Post. I could have chosen to send my children to Corning schools, which would have provided significant savings, and childcare before and after school. However, I chose Horsens because of its strong reputation and excellent school district, and I wanted my children to attend school with their neighborhood friends. I've never regretted the decision. My children received an outstanding education. They were shaped by dedicated teachers, coaches, choir directors, marching band and orchestra directors, guidance counselors. Today, each of them is successful in their chosen career and continue to be engaged, contributing members of their community. I first served on the Board of Education in the early 2000s, took a brief hiatus, and then decided to run again. I am now in the third year of my third term. I see this service as my way to give back to the district that provided so much for my children and continue to serve the children of our community. During my tenure, I worked with two superintendents, Dr. Ralph Marino and now Dr. Thomas Douglas. I've collaborated with board officers, various members, some of whom came to the board with a personal agenda, but more often the individuals wanted to serve for the greater good of the district. Under Dr. Douglas's leadership, I have seen much needed improvement to schools and facilities. Curriculum has strengthened, ensuring Horsens remains one of the top school districts in the region. The business staff has worked diligently to keep taxes low. Participation.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to make this gentleman this time is up. So the question remains, do we as a board want to instruct Dr. Douglas to have the, attorney offer us, dates to have this meeting?
Preferably as soon as possible.
But we can't have it, like, it was on Thursday, because that's a normal business day, or business day, we can't have that day, correct? Is that?
Well, it just means you're going late into the night. Yeah. But I can't guarantee they can do that.
Discussions during a. From what Jan was saying, a normal business. Maybe I can switch.
I think Dan said it would be his preference that it not be done in public. But
It needs to
if
be
you want,
to the attorney.
I think the theory would be if it was Thursday, we'd be very, very late into the night.
Can I just clarify? It's not enough to say I don't want it to be in public. What I'm saying is, under our board policy, to discuss board, interaction and no district business. It doesn't fit the definition of a board meeting or a special meeting. I think we have to determine what's the right forum to have that discussion, right? And I specifically remember when NISBA came and we had that retreat, we talked about when there's no action to be taken, when there's no district business, you can have a retreat and discuss things as a board, and it's, that's sort of the free flowing open session. A meeting, a district meeting is a series of agenda items, we move through business, we vote. I just don't think that's the right. My point is, under our policy, that's not the right form, in terms of the policy language to have the discussion that I believe is to be had.
So you're saying you should have an executive session?
No. No, executive session is an entirely different legal construct. I didn't say anything about executive session.
Where would you have it?
In a board retreat.
Well, a board retreat is done like an executive session. There's no minutes taken and.
There's no minutes to be. Listen, there's only if it's a business meeting where business of the district is to be conducted. And I remember you a few minutes ago saying it's not district business, right? So you can't pick and choose what you want. You said it's not district business. Which is not district business.
So then if you think the board is district business of this, I asked Dr. Douglas, I had a long conversation with him on the phone about this. And he asked me, you want to call this, I understand why you're talking to me. And he was the one, I said, this is how I feel, like this is what's going on, it needs to be addressed. Because the issues are going back to me asking financial questions
everything I sent over, things that have happened, it's all about finances. And at this point in time, the dynamics, you know what, when you file a complaint with the commissioner, they give you a ruling to figure out what's right and what's wrong. That's what happens. So I guess we could figure it out. I have letters from open meeting law several times. I shared them with you guys as the board and how we're supposed to conduct ourselves openly and make decisions. And this is
If I
what
can
we're not doing.
interrupt, just because of the fact that if you are considering an open complaint, and I understand, my job is to protect the board and all board members. This is a public meeting being taped, so anything you're saying here could be either used for you or against you out there. So if you're going to do that, this is not the table where we can entertain it. But the real questions at hand is to get the attorney to find a date, and I'll ask him how he's going to end up doing it. Remember, if there is a discussion about any potential issues of things coming to the board, it is a legal issue. And the lawyer will say exactly where he will have the discussion, because he represents the district and the full board. He represents not a single person around this room unless the board authorizes that representation. And usually that's if there's a claim made against a specific member or a couple members of the board where the board has to get legal advice. So that's just, my role is I have to protect all of you, I have to protect the board, I have to protect the district. I feel that I'm under the assumption I have to work with the president to get the attorney to give us dates and say, when can you come as soon as possible? And however you want to meet, he's going to dictate. It's not up to me. It's going to be up to the legal counsel. And that's what the board will have to decide. If the board says he wants to do it this way, and the board says, nope, we're not going to do it, then you don't do it. But if he says you're going to do it this way, the board says, yep, you're going to do it this way, then the board's going to do it that way. You have to understand, you are the entity of the district and the district's board right now. And that's all I'm working on. So what I will do is I will reach out to him tomorrow, see if he's available for Thursday, but I can tell you, trying to get a lawyer on a short-handed notice right now, it's negotiating season. It could be the following week, the next week, or the third week. He or one of their lawyers will probably be available within the first 2 weeks. I just don't know.
I have a question on something that you just said, Tom. And I think that might be something for us to discuss is, and to possibly vote on, is if the lawyer makes a specific recommendation for where we are to hold the meeting and how it is to be held. I think I would vote yes on whatever the lawyer says, whether it's here, there, anywhere. What the lawyer shares, I would vote to say, yes, I would agree with. And that's something I'd like to put to the board.
I don't think you can do that right now, but I think you're stating the right thing. As a member of the former attorney, John Lynch would say, I'm the board's attorney. When I give you a recommendation, you can choose to follow it or you can choose not to, but it's my wallet on the table.
Well,
If I give you a recommendation and you choose not to follow it, it's no longer my wallet, it's all 9 of your wallets on the table.
but I think that's a step in the right direction, though, to say, you know, can we thumbs up it or whatever it is, that whatever the lawyer says, that we're gonna take that first step to do.
You will have to do some type of action to do that. I can't thumbs up it, not by email. I'm hoping, look at it. I'm hoping I'll be able to bring, if they can't do Thursday, at least bring whatever they need Thursday so that the board can act.
I'm just trying
Yeah.
to bring us to some kind of a, you know, hey, we're gonna move forward with this.
Well, the board already voted 5-3 to have the attorney involved.
Yeah.
And whatever the attorney does with that is up to the attorney. I don't think we should give him any more direction. I mean, I agree with how it's voted, but it's been voted 5-3, that you guys want to have an attorney here. So whatever the attorney does with that is up to the attorney. It's not up to us, it's up to the attorney. That's why you guys wanted to bring the attorney in. And that's fine, because something does need to be done. I don't know if you have to go back to Manners 101 or how we achieve this, but I remember that night too, Mary Ann, the September 1st meeting. Because I got a call by my hysterical daughter, and she couldn't even drive 2 blocks to get herself home. Me and my husband had to come together. What a sad, sad night. Whatever you were trying to do didn't work. I just know how hysterical it was, and it should have never happened because you're one of 9. One of 9, guys. Let's end the meeting.
I just think it's interesting you keep saying that, but the whole, we are 1 of 9. But Katrina's one, right? So that's the whole point. It's what the board votes on. I've argued this before, but you have to go with. But the board president does have specifically delegated duties under law and policy to say run meetings, set agendas. And the point I'm trying to make, right? And I think I want to clarify this for you, Katrina. If, for example, you wanted to take action or propose a motion to remove someone from an office, right? That's action that has to be stated on the agenda for the meeting. Like the notice, purpose of the meeting is to, consider a motion to remove person from office. If it's that's the kind of clarity and specificity you have to have for an agenda item, and you didn't have that here. If that's what was in your mind, I think you have to put forward those specific agenda items if we were going to have a meeting to address those. But that's when I say why you couldn't take actions, because there was no action stated as the call for the meeting.
Julie, you had something.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
What is the cost for the attorney job?
It's hourly rate, mileage, all it's.
Oh, we pay a retainer.
Yes.
Okay, so that's.
It's built into the retainer unless we go over it, which actually been doing very good. That's done.
Thank you.
All right, so,
I
my
think
feeling is that Dr. Douglas will contact the attorney, see if they're available, and we can discuss Thursday night. So I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?